How you doing, everyone? Welcome back to this episode of Braw Cast. I'm Billy Kirkwood. We've got a great episode for you. But before we kick things off and I give you a little more details about that, make sure to like, share and subscribe everything we're doing here at Braw Cast. You can check out some of the archive episodes that are, of course, over on Spotify. But let me tell you, if it's your first time joining in, we're not just a podcast about beards or beard oils. We're actually a lifestyle and attitudes podcast, you could say. We like to take a little journey throughout the mind, throughout the face, throughout the body. That got away from me as a metaphor. We'll keep going. Right. One more time, if you're looking to check out anything that's going on, make sure to head over to Braw Beard Oils. Lots of great stuff is coming out as well. And don't forget to check out the new range of merchandise, which this is not part of. And it's probably an interesting way to hand him a P45. Right. Our guest today, I think the best way to describe him would be a professional adventurer. He has run, swam and cycled Great Britain. He's battled jellyfish and has a lovely, lovely red beard. So you know the best thing about that is, it makes me feel like being Scottish, I have an affinity with him already. Very excited to welcome on. Absolutely wonderful. Mr. Sean Conway. Sean!
Wait, that is literally the best introduction I've ever had.
Thank you. Considering I let it get away from me quite a few times, I'm delighted with that news. How are you, man? I have to say, of all the people I've got to interview, just before it, Sean was saying that my background looked nice. Yours looks absolutely incredible. It looks like it's out of a Wes Anderson movie. That absolutely looks wonderful what you've got going on behind you. Are you at home just now?
I am. This is my office. I'm basically a wannabe 18th century explorer. I think I was born 200 years too late, I think. So I'm just desperately clutching at history right now.
It turns out you can't get Sherpers down at Lidl's. It's very difficult. If only we could. If only we could. We've got to dive in at the start. I have been obsessed with your career, and it's not even a career. It's a full blown. You're a full blown walking novel. I think it's one day. I think Steven Spielberg or someone that makes these huge epics is going to do. Yes, we got the Conway script. We got the Conway script. They'll never believe it. Your journey certainly in coming to the UK is an amazing one. From what I've been managed to make out, you came here with £100 in your wallet, and that was it.
Pretty much. So when I went to college after high school and studied photography. Yes. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I have an Irish passport, so I thought, why don't I go to Europe for a year, maybe 2 years, and that's the center of the world. When you look on a map, Britain's up there at the top, in the middle. Traveling from there is a lot easier than it was from South Africa and Zimbabwe, where I was born. So I thought, right, well, let me go to Europe and go to London, because that's where it all happens, right? Unfortunately, I couldn't afford to go to London because I literally sold everything. I sold my car, my first car that my parents got me. I sold that and sold various other things just to afford my plane ticket, pretty much.
Wow. What made you want to come to...
And 100 quid is what I had left over.
What made you want to come to Europe all the way from there? I mean, was it literature, or was it just... what gave you that yearning to come here? Was it just the sense of adventure, or was it just, like you say, it's the point of the map, it's a place to start?
It was literally the point of the map, and also it was probably a little bit of laziness, to be fair, on my part. I have English and Irish family. I have an Irish passport. Traveling to Europe was easy, easier than a lot of other countries. Everyone spoke English, and I needed work straight away. I had 100 quid, so I had to literally, 100 quid doesn't last long in England. No. So I managed to pre-find a job from South Africa in Cambridge in a salad factory. So when you buy all your pre-made salads in the packets nowadays. Yeah. Basically, I was in the refrigerated conveyor belt, chopping up all the lettuce, and because you got to cut out the hard bits of the lettuce and all the dead leaves before it goes into the machine that mixes it all together, right? So I was doing that, £5.80 an hour. It was great. I loved it. So I did that for just over a month, just to save enough money to move to London to then look for work. So I think I saved about 600 quid in the first month. Right. Which kind of gave me a bit of a buffer for London. So moved to London, and that's when I was just trying to get, work in the photography sector, whatever it was. And I landed up working in a photo lab Snappy Snaps. I think everyone, I don't know if they're still around anymore. You know, they were yellow and green.
If they are, if Snappy Snaps, if you're out there, I would suggest now might be the time to get that little endorsement from Sean. Get the checkbooks out, guys. That's all we got to say. So you worked at Snappy Snaps. It's not maybe the dream start, but it's a start.
It's a start. Yeah, you're right. You know, I was it was definitely a start. You know, it was great. I was earning enough money to sort of, dabble in actual photography on the sidelines. So at the beginning, I was working 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, and having Sunday off to try and get photography jobs. And then every time I got a little bit more photography jobs in, I would cut a day down in the lab. So it was sort of 6 days and 5 and 4 and 3, 2, 1. And that process took 6 years, and which is, and I'm glad it took that long. You set a foundation, you learn, and it's been a real lesson to me in this current job, career, or whatever I'm doing now as a sportsman, to sort of not to play the long game. Everyone was like, when I tell people like, oh, it took me 6 years to quit actual regular income to pursue my own photography, they'll go, wow, what, you worked in a lab for 6 years? And I was like, yeah, but it was fun actually. Everyone else in the lab was also budding photographers, and it was great. It was a good laugh.
And that energy would have been great, like being around those other creative people as well. Is that something I've seen in your work? You like feeding off the energy of other people that are excited in what they're doing. Was that something even in that early stage that you enjoyed?
Definitely. I call it the snowball of life. When you have an idea, you're a snowflake, and it's beautiful, and the idea is pure and everything. But often that's to get momentum in the idea, the snowflake needs to kind of become a snowball. And the snowball is other snowflakes and other people jumping on board, and eventually you gather this momentum. And it's great because actually at one point, the ball eventually gets so big that more people want to jump on, and then that's where you want to get to in any idea you have when you build this amazing bubble of network of people. And that's what it was like in the lab. And also it was great to, in this lab, there was probably only 1 or 2 other English people working in the lab. I think there was 10 sort of staff, all on different shifts and that sort of thing. Right. But there was loads of Europeans, and all of a sudden I got to meet Swedes and Swiss and Aussies as well, and Kiwis, and it was just, for me, like, I was going to come just for a year of travel, but it eventually just kind of, I kind of lost my flight back, I think.
And it's cool as well because it's almost like the travel almost came to you. It's because London's such this amazing little melting pot of all these different cultures, particularly in the sort of creative realms as well. So you're getting a little taste of all this little pot. Was it round about that time? Because it's quite a sudden change, as to be said, in terms of going into what you do now. Even though I'm sure these elements of it that go side by side. When was that day in the lab where you went, time for another change? When did that come about?
It was quite a long time after I left the lab. So it was 10 years that I'd arrived in the UK to my new job, almost to the day. So it was 11th of February 2012, I arrived in the UK. 18th of February 2002. 11th of February 2002, I arrived in the UK. 18th of February 2012, I set off to cycle around the world. So the first 6 years I was in the lab, and then there was a 4-year period between ending the lab and my new life, and that's where I messed it up. So that's the mistakes I made. So I had this dream of being this amazing travel photographer and traveling the world. But in the first 6 years, you say yes to everything. You're learning. I was in my early 20s, and I was like, yes. And I did a few amazing jobs. One of my first big paid jobs was 10 days in India photographing a catalog for a rucksack outdoor company. So, and then I got a job on the Harry Potter films, which was phenomenal. I was working on set in the stills department with the main photographer. I was just helping him out as a bit of a runaround, but it was amazing to just be on set on Harry Potter. I mean, that was phenomenal, right? So things were going well while I had the lab job, and I think they were going well because I could be a bit more creative and a bit more free with the jobs I chose because I had the regular income. And even though the regular income was tiny, I was, when I was working for 3 or 4 days a week, I was probably bringing in £500 a month, maybe,
Right.
which was fine. Like, it covered the rent and it covered some of my food and that sort of thing. So, like, at least I could survive, right?
It was
Which
a base,
gave me the
a
freedom.
base.
Yeah, exactly. And that was enough. And but the problem is, as soon as I went full time into photography, I all of a sudden got the panic and got the fear, and then I just needed to pay the rent, right? And I was like, right, well, let me find something within photography that pays easily and pays well, you know, because there's so many things you can do in photography. You know, you can be a travel photographer or a funeral photographer, right? You know, there's such a big genre. So I stumbled across the sort of the school photography market, and especially at nursery schools. So going into nursery schools and doing photos of all the little kids and toddlers, and then selling them at stupid prices to the parents. And wow, do parents buy rubbish pictures of their kids? I'm one of them.
I have one of them. I have one of them too. To the point that we have anything done by a private photographer, I make sure he sends me the bloopers. You know, the ones with the kid up here and all that.
Yeah,
those are the ones I want. But it's like you say, it's paying the bills. It's keeping the lights on. It's maybe not what you want to do, but it's a step closer to it.
Yeah, but the problem was it paid too well. You know, at 25, 26, I would go and photograph 100 kids in a nursery, and I would probably walk away with £2,000. You know, it's mad. Like, it's mad money. Like, all of a sudden, you know, all these parents, you know, all of them just bought the CD back then. You know, it was all sort of, you know, get all your images on a CD, and most of them went with that. And it was 50 quid a CD. Like, people were like, yeah, whatever. It's cheaper than going to a studio, which it is. It was. And actually, we were good. You know, I set up the business with a friend of mine, James Carnegie. And, you know, we were good. We took better photographs than our competitors. We gave the parents more options. We had a better online ordering system. Like, you know, we were on top of it. We were young. We were excited about it. But yeah, unfortunately, it just paid too well. So the next time I got this travel opportunity to go, I remember someone, and I said, I can't believe I said no. There was an opportunity to go to the South Pole to photograph some expedition there. Not to do the whole expedition, but just to go there. And they said, well, you're going to have to kind of pay your own way. We can't pay you, and you have to pay. But it was only £3,000.
Right. For that experience.
I mean, £3,000 is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near what an actual South Pole expedition costs. And I was sort of sitting there going, well, actually, that week I've got quite a few nurseries I could photograph, and, you know, I might bring in, you know, XYZ money and on that, and, you know, or I could spend money, and, you know what, I'm not going to do the South Pole thing. And I was like, whoa, you know, now I look back and I was just like, you idiot. You know, that's what you wanted to be, this, you know, world-renowned travel photographer. But you were sort of not doing, you know, saying no to those gigs in favor of money. And that was the sort of the beginning of the slippery slope, to be honest. And then
people don't understand it. Certainly when you become self-employed. I mean, it's because you are. It's a scary thing to when you do have that base of money. I can say that as a comedian, I used to have a nice job for working for a media production company, which was paid me just to turn up and push buttons and edit things. Then I became a stand-up. Then you start doing the gigs where you're like, oh, these are just the basic things. So when cool things were coming in, I wouldn't say yes to them because I'm like, well, you know, if I do jongleurs on a Saturday night to 100 stags and hens who hate my guts, I can pay for this. But if I were to maybe go and do that festival down there, I'd have a lot of fun, and it'd be what I'd want. I want the art for these jongleurs. So people, I don't think people in that realm quite understand that, but it's a hard space to get out of. So when did we get out of that space? There must have been a moment where you just went, right, I'm changing this. I'm changing this.
I mean, what I should have done is, you know, every year I should have reviewed my clients, and I should have just binned, because it's always the low end clients that pay the least that give you the most headache. Often it's quite common that, because, you know, they're trying to push you on price and that, you know. So I should have binned the nurseries that only had 10, 15 kids in, you know, and I should have just gone, right, all I'm going to do is one nursery a week, and I'm going to do a big one, and I'm going to make it worth their while and give them commission and blah, 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 which would have given me the rest of the week. Obviously, there's a bit of editing involved and, you know, the secure online stuff and whatever. But, you know, if you photograph a nursery on a day, you probably have one more day of admin, and then the rest is just taken care of online with ordering and that. And so I should have done that. I didn't. I just was like, right, more kids, more money, because in the future I'll be able to retire early and then go and do that. But actually, all that happens is the busier you are and the more money you earn, the more stress there is and the less time you have anyway. And so I remember turning 30. That was the crux.
Okay.
And I remember sort of sitting there going, holy moly, I've been doing photography now for 15 years because I started when I was 15. Yeah. I've been doing it nearly 10 years in London, and I have not done any travel gigs in the last 5-6 years. I went through my sort of shot. I just saw how many images were on my hard drive, and I had, I think, 750,000 images within my hard drive, which is mainly school stuff, but I did a bit of music photography back in the day as well, before that as hobbies. And I think in my sort of fun folder or the passion project folder, I maybe had 5,000, compared to 750,000 of the stuff I didn't like. And I thought, that's wrong. Why am I not traveling? And I just fallen out of love with it. So I went into my office, went to James, my business partner. I said, can you just buy me out? I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just don't want to do this anymore. I have no plan, but I want out. And he said, are you sure? Yeah. I said, yeah, definitely. He said, oh, okay, cool. And, looking through 10 years of spreadsheets and getting the calculator out. And then right at the end, he's like, right, mate, done the calculations, I'll give you £1. I said, I'll take it. Yeah.
Whoa. I always wondered where that £1 figure came from. Yeah. Which I read about. And that's insane. So, and you were was it a sense of relief? Was that a sense of relief to go, right,
initially,
okay,
yeah. You can actually see the pound behind me. So that there is the framed
Oh,
pound.
Is that the pound?
There
I'm
it
right
is.
in thinking that frame itself cost you £4. Is that right?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is, it did cost £4. So actually it was the worst business decision ever. So I got £1 for the business and then spent £4 framing the pounds. But yeah, so I mean, I could have haggled for more money, but James is a very good friend of mine and he's still a good friend of mine, and it wasn't worth it, to lose a friendship. And also it was me kind of being dogged and going, you know what, right from this day, I'm not going to make decisions based purely on my financial outcome. Wow. Which I know is completely simplistic and naive in a lot of ways, but at the time, it's what I needed. Right? So then the next step was, right, I want to go traveling, because that was my dream, just to go traveling, and the camera was going to be my passport to that. But I didn't have a camera. It all went with the sale.
Right, okay.
And then I just thought outside the box. I thought, well, how can I go traveling? How can I get someone else to pay for me to go traveling? That was my thinking. So I was thinking, well, what if I signed up to some volunteering and went and, built a school in Africa or Asia or whatever. Okay. Yeah, I could do that. But then that was limiting me to one location. I wanted to actually do a travel. So then I suddenly thought, well, actually, I've seen loads of people like Mark Beaumont cycle around the world and he had logos on him. I see people climb Everest with sponsors' logos and all these sort of things. So I kind of thought, well, is that a thing? Do people just think of silly ideas and records to break in the world of travel and get funding from sponsors, So I thought, well, let me think of some sort of record that involves travel that I think I could probably break if I trained really hard. And that's when I came up with the round the world cycle record, which actually coincided with the first ever round the world bike race in 2012. And that, I signed up for that. Didn't have a bike or anything that I could ride. I had a bike. It was way too big for me. And the only reason I thought I could do that is I'd already cycled Land's End to John O'Groats a couple of years before that.
Yes.
And that kind of got me hooked on it. And actually, it's quite funny, actually. When I finished Land's End John O'Groats in 2008, I remember getting home, washing my bikes. It was nice and shiny. And I remember going, wow, this is going to be the beginning of these epic cycle adventures. I'm going to cycle everywhere from now on. And I put the bike in my shed and didn't look at it again for another 2 years.
Oh no!
I had all the ideas, but I was very bad at executing them.
In saying that, you just done a cycle from Land's End to John O'Groats. That's pretty impressive for the layman, dare I suggest? Like to me,
it took me 25 days, and the record is under 2 days, so it wasn't exactly groundbreaking. I think I was doing 30 miles a day or something.
To be honest, I think it'd take me a couple of years, so you're already doing pretty well. And now it's come for a bit of a reset. You're wanting to do the around the world cycle, which just sounds it sounds so almost Jules Verne-esque, and just it being a huge style of adventure. You don't have a bike. I assume you get a bike.
Yeah.
Unless we open up the shed, you get a new bike. You're going to go on this, so there must be a feeling of exhilaration. You're getting to do you're taking the camera. You're doing the bike. Just as a point of order, are you planning in time to actually take in what's going on around you, or are you more focused on the race? Is it an entire thing for you?
So I remember speaking to a guy called Nick Sanders, who had the round the world cycle record back in the 80s, and he said one thing to me. Okay. He said, "Sean, the records get forgotten or broken, but you only get one chance to cycle around the world." And I really struggled with that, actually. I kind of wish he hadn't told me that, because for me at the beginning, it was like record. Because actually what was going to happen in my head is I was going to do this year of traveling, 6 months of training, 6 months of cycling around the world, get the record. Yay. I've proved to myself I'm worth something. And in doing so, I would have fallen back in love with travel photography. I would have got back home and decided to further my travel photography career. So that was the game plan. But then Nick was like, remember to have an adventure. So I was like, okay, well, he is right. I'm not going to get a second chance at this. So my version of trying to have an adventure was trying to do a little bit of each continent, other than Antarctica, of course. So I did, no one does Africa or South America in an around the world attempt, really. But I wanted to do a little bit. So because you have to go east to west, I went down Spain, Morocco, then flew to South America, North America, Australia. So that was my version of it. But to be honest, I wasn't there to smell the roses. And, everyone says, it's all about the journey, not the destination. I'm like, sod that. It's all about crossing that finish line. So, no, there was very little sort of enthusiasm to see the world. For me, it was a physical endeavor that happened to be around the world. But also you do kind of see the world. Of course I knew that I was going to see the world, because I could have done a different cycling record around a track, which I, didn't want to do. So although, for me, it kind of ticked all the boxes. I was going to do something that I thought was out of my reach. I was going to go around the world. And it was, even though I was, not seeing much, it's a bit like wine tasting. If you have 10, I went through 23 countries. So imagine you go to a wine tasting night and there's 23 little shots of wine. You don't get to the third one and go, oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to stop here and buy a whole bottle and finish that. You carry on doing the wine tasting. And that's what the round the world record was for me. I kind of wine tasted all the different countries. And now I have a little bit of a hint of the flavor of South America and Peru, and I'm going to go back and with my family later. So that was kind of my analogy on the speed records around the world,
But what an adventure to have. Even like you say, it's maybe not getting the time to savor it in the way you might like to. You've got this new focus, and this is the beginning of another chapter. It's like I said at the beginning, your walking novel. It seems to be there's always these new dawns. It's like, oh, this is it. This is the final act. Here comes the Harrison Ford cameo. Oh no, here's another one. Morgan Freeman's going to be working very hard on the voiceovers for this one. We just keep going and going and going. It's the beginning of a brand new thing, because you've done this, and people are now really getting behind. I hate saying the story, but they're getting behind what you are and your attitude almost. People really seem to be, and you yourself are almost metamorphosizing into something entirely new, because you've said you've been a photographer, you've now been going for a round the world record, and people are sort of Now, did you notice that happening? Was it something you were kind of hoping people would get on board and come with, like you say, the snowflake into the giant snowball? Did you notice that just happening naturally on this part, or was it something you set out to do?
No. So as I said, I had no intentions of being an adventurer, or more accurately, I'm probably an ultra endurance athlete.
Yes.
No, I had no intentions. As I said, I was going to cycle around the world, tick this box, this itch, scratch this itch, and then use that as a leverage to get back into travel photography. Unfortunately, when I got back from the round the world cycle, firstly, I didn't break the record because I got run over in America, but that information's all online if you want to dig into that one. Got back pretty depressed because of the accident and because I didn't break the record. And also still had no desire to get back into being a working photographer. So the idea of actually going out with my camera to try and make money was giving me panic attacks still,
Oh, wow.
So, what do I do? So I was like, right, well, life goes on. I need to buy food. I need to pay rent. Couldn't afford either of those things. So I moved back in with my mother in Cheltenham. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. So I was on the sofa. I signed on to the job centre. I was on job seekers allowance, going in, applying for loads of jobs. I was like trying, I didn't want to do photography, but if I needed to, I could. So I was applying for loads of studio jobs, but mainly I was applying for cycling related jobs. I thought, well, I've just cycled around the world. I kind of know how to fix a puncture. Maybe I'll do a mechanics course in bike maintenance and go and work in a bike shop. I was also applying for jobs with Sustrans as their bike kit officers to try and encourage kids into cycling to school.
Cool.
But yeah, 2012, for 6 months I was grinding. I didn't even get emails from anyone saying thanks for your application, but on this occasion we've gone for someone else. Which I get it. I was 31 years old. I have no A levels, and I didn't go to university. All I've ever done is been a photographer and cycled around the world. It's not exactly the glowingest of CVs, right? So eventually, after 6 months, my mother was just up to here with me living on her sofa. I was kind of desperate, and I thought, well, actually, the last time I thought of some sort of world record, I managed to get some funding. I got sponsorship for it, and it allowed me to at least live on this planet and buy food and go off and do these things for about 12 months of my life. So that was the next thing. I thought, well, maybe if I just think of some other record, at least it'll get me out of my mom's house, and at least I'll be able to afford food because that's part of the sponsorship deal, or I might get food sponsored for it, and it'll just give me something to do for the next year. And that's when I thought of swimming the length of Britain. That was sort of the moment happened was when, I was watching Dave Cornthwaite swimming down the Missouri River in America, and I thought, wow, a swimming adventure looks tough, looks difficult, but also looks magical because every night he had, campfires on the edge of the river, and it just looked amazing and kind of looked right up my street. And then also I had cycled Land's End John O'Groats, and I loved exploring Britain. It installs your faith in humanity doing stuff in Britain because everyone's so friendly and warm and welcoming and that sort of thing. And so I thought, well, maybe I could become the fastest person to swim Land's End John O'Groats because it must have been done. People have hit a golf ball Land's End John O'Groats and pushed a bed and slept in it and done the whole thing living just off nuts, So people have done, and also bigger swims have been done. There's a Martin Strauss swam the Amazon and the Yangtze and the Danube, and there's a French guy who was allegedly swam the Atlantic, so big swims have been done. So I thought it had been done. So I went online. I was like, fastest person to swim Land's End John O'Groats. Anyway, this guy comes up, forget his name now, we'll call him Tim. Tim swims Land's End to John O'Groats in 7 days. I was like, what? Set the running record's 9 days. How do you swim it quicker than that? I was like, well, I've got no chance of becoming the fastest. But anyway, it turns out, actually, this Tim fella put a swimming pool on the back of a van and did lengths as they drove it.
What?
That's genius. I mean, he swam it, he swam it. Anyway, I thought that was great. And so it landed up that no one had even attempted it. So all of a sudden it became a world's first, which world's firsts are really hard. Not even if they're physically not difficult, it's very difficult to get any useful information from people because no one's done it before.
Okay.
It's very difficult to get sponsorship on board because everyone's like, yeah, probably not going to happen. So why am I going to risk it? The investment type thing and that sort of thing. So this swim was tough to get off the ground, but I was very grateful that Speedo came on board. Right, I mean, literally, I think I was like a week into the swim before they sort of said, "Wow, you really are doing this." And
what happened? Did they run up to the shore and dangle some trunks at you? Come on.
No, I'd been speaking to them for ages before, and originally they were just sort of, we'll just give you a wetsuit and that's it. And then I said, come on, this is really going to happen. You could be title sponsor and, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, okay, yes, no. And then eventually I was sort of there and it was happening. And they had actually even sent someone down. They're one of their marketing people. And they're like, you know what, this is, if this guy pulls us off, it's going to be huge. Yeah. And then, they jumped on board and just basically paid for the food and diesel for the sailboat. And also, it's quite expensive getting 4 people to Land's End and back from John O'Groats. Honestly, it's £400 a train ticket nowadays or something if you don't book it far enough in advance, right? So it was quite expensive, and that's, Speedo were amazing coming on board and doing that. So did that swim, and still again, no real intention of it leading to anything other than just getting me out my mum's flat for 6 months type thing. Which it did, and then eventually, a lot slower than I was hoping, I eventually did get to John O'Groats, and my life changed the moment I touched ground. All of a sudden, literally my life changed overnight. Not even overnight, within an hour. Within an hour of me finishing, I was live on BBC World News to, hundreds of millions of people around the world, front page of the Times, on every swimming blog, and just, on the One Show event. The next day I was on the One Show sitting next to Jason Donovan. It's just crazy, people tweeting in going, wow, Kylie's looking a bit hairy. And then all of a sudden it's book deals and, TV people, Discovery Channel going, oh, what are you doing next? Can we send a camera crew to do it? Agents, managers, and I really have to give a shout out to Ben Fogle. He was amazing,
Right.
There was not 1 ounce of jealousy that I had sort of done this big successful adventure. He invited me to this event in London and hosted me that he was putting on. And then at the end, I remember him talking amongst a whole group of people going, oh, Sean, it's amazing what you've done. Email me tomorrow. I'll hook you up with a good manager who can make sure that, they filter in all these offers because you're going to get loads of all these offers coming in, and it's good to have someone doing that for you. And I'll put you in touch with a really good literary agent to get you a book deal. And I have to be honest, I remember sitting there going, yeah, whatever, Ben, it's all talk in front of, showing off to all your mates. But honestly, the next day, him and Marina, his wife, emailed me both separately, putting me in touch with various literary agents and a manager who can just look after all the things that were coming in. And it's crazy, just the opportunities that all of a sudden were just coming my way. I'm still, if I'm honest, still riding that wave 2013, and of course, I worked hard at, staying on the wave. The wave came and I managed to jump on it and stay on it. And that was when all of a sudden, it's not that I ever even thought of this as a career opportunity. It just all of a sudden things were coming to me the book deal about the swim was like, oh, and no, you've cycled around the world. Oh, we'll give you a deal on that book as well. And that was Penguin Random House. So all of a sudden I had a 2-book deal straight out the block. And then all of a sudden, I was like, right, well, people are like, what do you want to do next? I was like, well, I want to complete the Length of Britain triathlon. So I did the run. I actually attempted the run the first time and failed. And then on the second time, that's when Discovery Channel said, oh, no way. We saw you were running Britain. because I was speaking to them about some other shows, some really random ones. It was one that it was going to be called Cabin Fever, where I was going to go and do a trek into the Alaskan wilderness and then build a cabin. And it was a bit of I don't know why they thought I just looked like a lumberjack, I guess. And that was taking too long. Like they were umming and ahhing, and because they wanted someone else involved in it, like an actual expert. So I was sort of the endurance person, and then there was an actual expert. Anyway, so while they were doing that, I said, "Well, you do that. I'm just going to go off and I didn't even tell them I attempted the first run of Britain, and then that failed. And then when I failed, it got a lot of publicity because I failed by taking a selfie while there was a little video selfie running along. I tripped on a rock because I didn't see it, and the Sun newspaper had a quite fun with that one, and everyone like, ha ha, look at Sean taking injured taking a selfie, and then also Discovery were like, what, you were running Britain, are you going to do it again? Can we follow you the next time? I was like, if you want, if you can keep up, type thing. And that was great. It was fun. As a photographer, I really enjoyed. I enjoyed a lot more than I thought I would, creating a documentary, a sort of visual form of my, visual memory of my adventures. Actually,
Well, that's a great way of looking at it. I mean, it's effectively almost a roadmap of your adventures, but in visual form. You just keep going, and you're able to just create this image for people to come on. And there's that word journey again that you've had all these times. It's wild to see how quickly these type of things snowballed for you. I mean, obviously there's the books and the media appearances, and like I say, Ben Fogle, who himself came into, I don't want to say I hate using the phrase celebrity because it's not what I mean, but came into that
everyone's
industry
consciousness,
via being a volunteer. I think it was Castaway. I think that's where he kicked off way back when, and now look how he's doing. So this takes us to how one of the things that really interested when I was reading up and more about you was the fact that you even make this point, as we've had and we've been hearing about some of the highs and lows and what have you, is you've actually even going out and you're speaking at schools and events, which again, after everything we've spoken about, is not something that you made reference to in the past. I mean, obviously interacting with people and making these things happen, that seems like an entirely new thing, being able to share those experiences in an audible form to audiences and making a connection. What made you feel what made you feel you wanted to do that? Was it to try and lift people up, or because I've seen there's a lot of classes and works that you do in order to help lift people up and give them that energy? What made you feel you wanted to do that?
I remember sort of quite early on realizing what actually my job is,
right?
And job in inverted commas, So people kind of call me an adventurer. I'm probably more a non-professional ultra endurance athlete, right? So I don't have an organized committee and organized events that I try and compete in. So I'm a non-professional athlete, which is a bit difficult because actually, how do you actually pay your rent being a non-professional athlete? And early on, I realized actually what I really do to pay the bills is I sell stories. I'm a storyteller. Basically, I'm a storyteller. And I either will sell that story in visual form and for TV and documentaries, or I'll sell it in book form. Sometimes I sell it in blog forms. Well, I don't sell it, but I put it out there in blog forms. And then the last one was sort of doing it in talks, becoming a storyteller for talks. And I soon worked out that actually I could, the big corporations and that have, budgets to pay me to go and do a talk at like Microsoft and Google and all these people that I've been to, which was amazing. And then what I sort of thought, well, that's great. I can make the money from the big corporations, and then do the schools and work with the scouts and do all that sort of thing, out of my own time type thing. And it was quite nerve-wracking at the beginning. I have to be honest. I remember my first talk, I was like, this is not for me. Like, it's just too much stress. I just didn't know what I was doing. But you know what? I thought, I want to be good at this because actually I think it would be misusing my my platform by not going out and doing talks, because I genuinely feel I do have a story that my own personal story. I don't preach to people because people are way too intelligent. They can just hear my story and they'll take from it whatever they want. And I thought I would regret, if I was 80 years old in the old age home, looking back at my life, having not gone out and done all the public speaking, I would regret that, because actually now, especially now, once you get good at the talks and once you nail it and you've got your story honed down, and now I work with individual companies to actually customize the talk specifically for what they want to tell their staff, and I really get a buzz out of it now. Actually, I wore a heart rate monitor for a talk once, and I remember I was backstage and my heart rate was quite high. It was probably sort of 90, 80, 90, whereas normally it's in mid 50s. And then as soon as they sort of welcomed me on stage, like, and we'd like to introduce Sean Conway, my heart rate went up to like 150, like boom, straight away. And then it stayed at 150 until I delivered my first few lines in the talk. And then it hovered back down and went down to sort of about 80 again at the end. But yeah, I really like that. It's like being on the start line for something, you just get that real buzz. And then also, of course, you've got to, have no heart to not enjoy the letters I get from kids that go, wow, your story was amazing. And I never dreamed that I could ever, even ride my bike to school type thing. But seeing you cycle around the world means I'm going to give it a go, And it's great. So it's all part of the storytelling. I think there's something in me that wants to be and enjoys being a storyteller. Yeah. I enjoy writing as well, and that's, of course, storytelling is and that sort of thing. So I think, in essence, doing all the speaking and that is all part of me just wanting to be a storyteller.
It's almost funny that it's come all the way from you wanting to be a travel photographer, which in its way is a storyteller, and without going on the journey that you've effectively made the stories that you're going to tell, as opposed to telling the stories for other places. It's all interconnected. It's absolutely, because I was reading on your website. It's school kids, it's big companies, it's everyone, and then there's all the people that are really drawing stuff from your book and experiences, and you're inspiring people is one of the big things. I even see that in some YouTube comments on the likes of the documentary. People are getting on their bikes and they're cycling, 1,000 miles for charity. They're doing it to be fit. It's and they're looking at, and I guess it's the part we need to come to. They're looking at an unconventional face for it, dare I suggest, an unconventional figure, and they're going, well, I can at least, this inspires me to do something. That's going to be, because we've certainly got to talk about that. I mean, how do you feel about that? Literal members of the public that are looking at you and they're going, something, this guy's story and everything that's going on, that inspires me to do something. Is that satisfying for you?
Oh, it's amazing. It's just like Christmas every day almost when people send these things. And it's interesting. So on my website, I've put a section called Hiccups, which is all the stuff that's kind of not gone to plan. Because at one point, especially when I was doing all the TV things, I really noticed that people, yes, it reached a lot of people, but there was quite a lot of people who just thought, oh, well, of course he can do that because, and they would be pretty honest with me. They're like, oh, he must be minted. He must have loads of money.
Yeah.
He must have loads of time. He must have this huge network of people around him. Like scientists and biologists and nutritionists and all these sort of things, right? That was quite a common presumption. And the other one is, he's probably a biological freak of nature. Like there's probably something in him that is different to me, so of course he can do these things. And I started to think about that. And it's called outliers, people who do amazing things, but are not necessarily inspiring other people because they're considered outliers. They're considered people on the fringes. For example, I don't know, someone, a racing car driver, for example, for me, or Usain Bolt, right. It's inspiring his journey, but there's no way in a million years he would inspire me to go and run 100 meters because I know biologically he's a freak of nature. He's the right height. He's got the right fast twitch fibers.
Yeah.
blah, 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 right? So I was like, okay, well, that's not going to inspire me to run 100 meters because I feel he's an outlier in the world. So I wanted to show people that actually I failed at loads of things, and that in itself has actually almost been more inspiring for people. You know, I get more people emailing me going, no way, I didn't realize you had messed up so many things. You know, because it proves that actually I'm just kind of normal. And actually, biologically, I've been tested. I've actually been tested in the same laboratory as Jensen Button for my reflexes.
Right.
Chris Froome for my speed and power, and the Brownlee brothers and Rory McIlroy. You know, I got the opportunity to go and be tested. And I have to be honest, secretly, I was sort of while I was being tested, I was like, yeah, there's something in me that scientists are going to write about for centuries. You know, there's some hidden gene in me that makes me go longer and further and whatever. Anyway, like, we did all the tests, and a few weeks later, I went back for the results. And I remember the guy looking through his the PDF of all my results, and he's like, he had quite a big smile on his face at the beginning, thinking he might find something.
Right.
And then as he flipped every page, the smile dropped, and by the end he was like, sorry to say, mate, but actually there's literally nothing special about you. And in fact, your reaction speeds are so slow, if you were a Formula One driver, you'd crash on every corner.
Oh, that's such a shame. Sorry, mate.
So I was like, man. And
you thought they're going to find the Conway gene or something. This is going to be it.
So, you know, if anything, I actually have a slight disability in the world of ultra endurance. I lose loads of sweat, of salt. Sorry, I lose like 3.4 grams of salt per liter of sweat. And most people lose like a gram of salt, you know, so I have to really be on top of my salt intake when I'm doing big things. Otherwise, I just get super dehydrated. So I sort of wanted to show people that actually I am just a normal guy. You know, I don't have loads of money. I work very hard, and, you know, I make money doing my talks and selling my books and sponsorship deals and that sort of thing. But I didn't just get handed a pot of money and that sort of thing. Yeah, I have more time now because this is my job, so I do have time to go and train, and of course that helps. But you remember, I'm up against other people who also have the time. You know, I've still got to try and beat them, right? Because this is sport. You know, sport is sport. You're up against the next guy or girl who's attempting the same record as you, and that's been really good, you know, showing people that actually I've failed at many things is kind of almost inspired people more, which I kind of like, you know.
Oh, so in the movie that it ends in the big lab, he's just a regular bloke. Yeah, shoulder high. We've got this cast. It's amazing.
But I want George Clooney to play me, please.
We are going to have to put him into a lot of makeup, but I'm sure we can make that happen.
What are you saying? I think I look exactly like him.
I don't know if we're talking about the same George Clooney. But there's a beautiful honesty to the fact you're saying to people, "Look, judge me on my failures because they're the journey to my successes." I think that's something that I think that's really something that people can awesomely identify with. But right, well, I've got to have a couple of questions. You've been so generous with your time. We really appreciate it. And always remember, you do have the disability of a lot of more athletes can hold on to their salt better than you. You have to bear that in mind.
That's true.
That's always something to bear in mind. We've had a whole bunch of questions, a whole bunch of stories. I'll very quickly fire through some of these. The beard, we've got to talk about the beard, right? Which, because of course, we're doing it for Braw Beard. First of all, it's glorious looking, I have to say. I can't even attempt to grow a beard anything more than this. It just stops.
No, gutted.
Sadly, I think my dad's genes let me down somewhere. I think he was effectively a coconut, and this is as far as it'll go. But the story that I've heard is that you grew the beard to combat jellyfish.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Yeah. It was on the swim.
Where did the idea come from?
Well, it just happened by mistake. I started the swim clean shaven, of course, and then you know, I was getting stung on the face by jellyfish, and I was just like, well, that's just part and parcel. And then about a week went by when I got stung in the face, but actually the sting didn't hurt as much where I had a little bit of facial hair. You know, just a little bit of bum fluff, a little bit like you.
Right.
And
Well, that hit me hard. I won't lie. I wasn't expecting it to hit me that hard, but it really. Sorry, continue.
Sorry, cheap shot, my bad.
Cheap shot, well taken. Good for you. Good for you.
And I just realised that where I had a bit of facial hair, it's physically stopped the tentacles touching my skin, and it just was acted as a bit of a barrier. And once I kind of cottoned onto that, I was just like, right, that's it. I'm just going to grow this massive anti-jellyfish protection beard, and it definitely worked. What didn't work, and I get this question a lot, is there's also quite another very common theory on what else fixes jellyfish stings. And I'm here as a public service announcement to tell you all that it does not work. It does not work. Don't let anyone trick you into that one, especially if you get stung on the face, because I tell you what, it's pretty embarrassing.
So just in case anyone's not clued in, the pee does not cure a jellyfish sting. I might be one of the few other people that know this, because where I live right here on the west coast of Scotland, I'm down in Ayrshire. We're covered by beaches. I discovered this as a young boy. This is not the case. So I'm finally glad to hear someone is making these public service announcements.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They have to get you on every single channel in the summertime to let people know.
Yeah,
let people know. But you keep the beard looking glorious. Do you think it's become? Of your identity almost? People see you, and because all of the pictures. I mean, it's very eye catching to see someone in your the biking gear, especially the helmet on, the tight top, but with the big beard coming out.
Yeah.
Do you think it's become part of your identity?
So in the early days, I have to be honest, I was getting quite a kick out of it. You know, everyone's like, "Oh, the beard." You know, in every interview I did and every photo shoot, everyone's like, "Oh, do you still have the beard? Do you still have the beard?" And it kind of became my thing. And I truthfully, I quite liked it because it means I didn't have to shave. And when I shave, I get a really bad rash, and I've got quite sensitive skin. And also, like, my beard's kind of it's well formed, and it's not too scraggly when it's this length type thing. And I kind of liked it. And then what happened is I met my wife, and she just loves ginger people with beards. pretty niche market there. Yeah, she's when we first met, we actually had this rule that we weren't allowed to Google each other or even become Facebook friends. I think we only became first Facebook friends after we were married, I think.
Wow.
And so basically she's never seen me without a beard, like ever. And she loved the beard. Like, that's why she fancied me at the beginning. She's like, "Oh, wow, I just love this, like, rugged ginger guy with a beard." So now I'm just terrified of divorce if I get rid of it. That's basically where I am now. But yeah, it's laziness, to be honest. I quite enjoy not having to think about it. And I mean, this is probably the wrong platform to admit that I actually don't do anything with it product wise. Maybe I should.
hey, who knows? If John's watching, the boss of Braw Beard, let's hook Sean up. I mean, if his wife likes it in this stage, does a bit of grooming in that. Oh my goodness!
Oh gosh, yeah.
We're going to be off to the races. I love the fact as well you didn't actually become Facebook friends until after you were married. I love the idea of your wife's friends maybe not knowing how the relationship was going, and one day married.
And what makes it worse is because I was, to kind of be a little bit more under the radar, I'm a girl on Facebook. So all of a sudden, my wife's married to a girl with a different name, and everyone's like, "What?"
Wow, there really has been some changes since the last episode. Well, Sean, this has been just an absolute delight. We've got to say, do you have anything coming up that you're working on just now? I know, obviously, is any more books or anything in the pipeline, or anything you're planning for 2021, maybe?
Yeah, so, book-wise, I just wrote my first sort of young adult literature. It's called The Adventures of William Wilder, Tempera's Treasure. It's the first of a 3-book series, so it's a proper book. This is not just a kid's photo book. There's 23,000 words. and I'm really loving it. I really enjoyed it, and I've got 2 more books. So this is the male character. The second book is a female character called Nora Knight, and then the third book. So all the 3 books intertwine, but you can only read the boys' book if you want, and you can also only read the girls' book. They are standalone. And then the third book is when they team up together. So the stories kind of intertwine, and then at the end they go on this epic adventure together and solve mysteries and that. So it's a bit of Hardy Boys, a bit of Indiana Jones, which I quite like. So that's on the book front. Adventure-wise, I'm a new dad. My son's 17 months old, and I have to say, lockdown has been fabulous. I've been a big fan of.
I had a baby at the start of lockdown as well. It's been a real gift getting to spend lots of time with my kid, lots of time.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? So, and I'll never get that time back now. So it's great to be home for a bit. I am planning something big, which was meant to be this year. I now may have also missed the weather window for 2021, so it's possibly now 2022, which is it's a long way because I'd actually done 2 big training runs, and when I do my big training blocks, it's my last training block was 70 hours a week. Yeah, it's between 60 and 70 hours a week training, so it's heavy, and I've done. I've been doing that, and then obviously COVID happened, so I had to delay, and then I rested. They did another big training block, and then delayed again, and so it's a bit frustrating that I'm sort of doing all this training for nothing. But especially training that takes so much time away from the family for nothing is kind of annoying. But watch this space, and it's big. It's big. The next thing I'll do is the biggest thing I probably ever will do, which is a bit of a worry in itself because. I don't know what I'll do after that, but I don't know. I've always fancied working in an animal sanctuary, so maybe that'll be my next 10 years.
Oh, right. Oh wow! I was thinking the next big adventure was going to space. I was like, yes, let's do this. For first ginger beard in space, that would be awesome. Would be awesome. Well, listen, everyone watching Braw Beard, thanks very much for doing it, and make sure to check out everything that's going to be going on with Sean. We're going to be posting links in our social media. Sean, what I'll do is I'll pop you in the green room, and I'll finish up here with the boys and girls. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the wonderful Mr. Sean Conway. Thank you very much. That's all we got time for on this episode of Braw Cast. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure we will post and give you all the information about where you can check out everything Sean's up to, and make sure to check out those books as well. It's like the type of ones you used to read when you were at school that really just fired off the synapses. Make sure to check them out. They're going to be awesome. Of course, check out everything we're doing over at Braw Beard, and we're going to see you next time. Now, here is the bit, inevitably in every show, where I have to try and not look at the computer while I'm playing the closing sequences. Will I manage it? I think I might have done it.